Welcome to Impact Headline. US recession risk jumps to 45%. China warns nations against US-aligned trade deals. US Vice President in India. A recent Reuters poll indicates a 45% probability of the US entering a recession within the next 12 months, up from 25% the previous month, despite the recent 3-month pause on reciprocal tariffs. This is the sharpest downgrade in economic forecasts by economists as a group since July 2022. The US inflation rate is just over 2%, but the new 10% blanket tariff could push it higher. Meanwhile, more tourists are choosing to avoid the US over Trump's tariff policy. Impact on Sri Lanka. Yesterday, a delegation from Sri Lanka left for Washington to discuss tariffs. A tariff waiver is expected since Sri Lanka is under the IMF program. The US is Sri Lanka's largest export market, with exports rising by 5.5% to $2.9 billion in 2024, and over 70% of these exports came from the apparel sector. Sri Lanka has decided to eliminate US para-tariffs and increase energy imports. China has warned it will retaliate against nations that strike trade deals with the US at Beijing's expense. The warning follows reports that the US is offering tariff exemptions in exchange for limits on trade with China. Currently, China faces tariffs of 145% on its exports to the US, with levies on some goods likely to reach 245%. Although certain tech items like consumer electronics have seen waivers, China says any effort to isolate it through trade will be met with firm countermeasures. Chinese tech groups also are now leading a multi-billion-dollar push to boost domestic sales and reduce reliance on exports. Impact on Sri Lanka. China has been a key investor in large-scale projects such as the Colombo port city and remains Sri Lanka's 6th largest tourist source market. A strong Chinese economy is crucial for foreign direct investment and tourism. However, escalating tensions with the US could impact Chinese investments and reduce tourist inflows to Sri Lanka. Conversely, if China succeeds in boosting domestic consumption and stabilizing its economy, it could sustain or even increase its investments abroad, including in Sri Lanka. The US Vice President J.D. Vance is currently in India on a 4-day trip to finalize a US-India bilateral trade agreement by this autumn. Both nations aim to double bilateral trade to around $500 billion by 2030. Currently, the US is India's largest trading partner, with India maintaining a significant trade surplus of $45 billion. The deal is a potential opportunity for India to expand trade with the US amid a trade stalemate between the US and China. Impact on Sri Lanka. India is a significant FDI partner for Sri Lanka. The finalization of the bilateral trade agreement with the US will ensure a steady flow of investments into Sri Lanka. Just earlier this month, Prime Minister Modi visited Sri Lanka and discussed boosting bilateral ties. India is also Sri Lanka's largest tourism source market, contributing over 143,000 tourist arrivals so far this year. And that's the wrap for this week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated on the latest developments in Sri Lanka.